So, let me start with this. If anything happens to me after I post this, I wasn't suicidal. I wasn't depressed. I didn't just go off the grid. I'm sharing this because I'm terrified, and because I think people need to know what's happening. Last year, I went on what was supposed to be a peaceful, week-long wellness retreat in the mountains. I found it through a coworker who swore it changed her life. The website was slick, with testimonials from smiling, serene people who talked about finding clarity, unlocking inner strength, and transcending trauma. I was skeptical at first, but I'd just gone through a breakup, was burnt out from work, and honestly, I was vulnerable. The place was called the Circle of Echoes. Yeah, I know. Sounds sketchy. But when you're at your lowest, even sketchy things feel like hope. I paid $3,000 up front. They said the money covered food, lodging, guided meditations, healing exercises, and transformational inner work. What they didn't mention was that you had to surrender your phone the moment you arrived. Digital detox, they called it. The compound was 3 hours outside the city, deep in the woods. No cell reception. You were driven in a shuttle after parking in a remote lot. When I got there, I was greeted by a woman named Melis. She wore a flowing white robe and spoke in this soft, almost hypnotic tone. Everyone did, actually. All the guides looked like they'd walked out of a minimalist cult fashion show, barefoot, serene, and weirdly synchronized in how they moved and spoke. Still, I stayed. I told myself to be open-minded. The first few days were strange, but manageable. We woke up at 5 a.m., did silent walks in the forest, group chanting, and energetic realignment exercises that basically involved staring into each other's eyes until someone cried. Meals were vegan and portion controlled. We weren't allowed to talk about our past, only our potential. It got darker on day 4. They led us into the woods blindfolded, said it was a shadow confrontation. We were left alone for what felt like hours. When I took off my blindfold, I was standing in front of a massive stone structure I hadn't seen before. A circle of jagged rocks surrounding a pit filled with ash and burned wood. There were symbols carved into the stones. Ones I later found out were linked to actual occult rituals. That night, we had a cleansing fire. They gave us red robes to wear. We had to chant names, some were in languages I didn't recognize, and toss something precious into the fire. People were crying, screaming. One girl fainted. No one helped her. They said it was part of her release. That was my breaking point. I pretended to be sick the next morning and asked Melis if I could go home. She smiled and said, "Once you've entered the circle, you must complete it." That phrase made my blood run cold. I realized then that we weren't just on a retreat. We were being conditioned. That night, I snuck out of the main hall and found the locked room we weren't supposed to enter. It was their archive. Dozens of files, binders, notebooks, all detailing past members, psychological profiles, and something called the Ascension Protocol. I took photos, lots of them. One binder had the name of my coworker, the one who referred me, except her real name wasn't listed. She'd been recruited under a code name, Initiate Sivan. And then, I found a list titled Reclamation Targets 2023. My name was on it. That was it. I panicked. I ran back to the cabin, grabbed my bag, and bolted into the woods. No phone, no map, just adrenaline and terror. I walked for nearly 6 hours before I reached the main road and flagged down a delivery truck. The guy let me use his phone to call my sister. She drove out to get me, and when I got home, I posted everything on Reddit, on r cults and r no sleep, tagging every detail I could remember. The post blew up. People were horrified. Some even messaged me saying they'd had similar experiences but were too scared to speak out. The subreddit mods cross-posted it to r true off my chest and r creepy stories. It went viral overnight. I thought I was done. But then, the packages started. The first was a small wooden box. Inside, a dead bird, its beak stitched shut, laying on a scrap of my red robe from the retreat. No return address. Then came the phone calls. Blocked numbers. Voicemails that were just whispering. One of them repeated the same line over and over. You broke the circle. You must return to complete it. I filed a police report. They said without direct threats, there was nothing they could do. 3 days later, someone spray-painted a red symbol, the same one from the stone circle, on my apartment door. I moved in with my sister, but it didn't stop. They found her house too. Her car was vandalized with the words, "You shelter the fractured." We got security cameras. One night, we caught someone standing at the edge of her property for 4 hours. Just standing there. Staring. Wearing a hooded white robe. We called the cops again. They searched the area and found nothing. I took a break from posting, tried to lay low, but people kept messaging me about the cult. Some said they'd seen flyers for the Circle of Echoes in other cities. Others said similar groups had tried recruiting them through healing seminars and inner power workshops. I started noticing people following me, on the train, at the grocery store. Same dead eyes, calm demeanor. It was like they'd blended in with regular society, but they were watching. One night, I got home and my apartment was unlocked. Nothing was stolen, but on my bed, someone had placed a mirror. Just a mirror. With the words, "See yourself. Surrender," written in red lipstick. I moved. Again. I even changed my name online, made new social media accounts, deleted the old ones, stopped responding to messages about the cult. It's been 6 months, and for a while, it worked. The calls stopped. No more packages, no red symbols. I started to feel safe again, until last week. I was at a coffee shop when the barista handed me my drink and said, "Here you go, Lumen." That was the name they gave me at the retreat. I never told anyone that name, not even my sister. I looked at the barista. She just smiled. I left my coffee and walked out. When I got home, my laptop was open, on a page I didn't recognize. It was a countdown timer, just a black background with white numbers ticking down from 72 hours. There was no browser history. I hadn't clicked anything. I shut the laptop, unplugged it, and threw it in the closet. But, the next morning, a note was taped to my door. "You still have time to return, Lumen." That's when I knew this wasn't over. It may never be over. I'm posting this now as a warning. If you ever see anything related to the Circle of Echoes, stay away. They are not a retreat. They are not healers. They are organized, well-funded, and they do not forgive betrayal. I don't know how many of them are out there. I don't know how they keep finding me, but I've accepted that I'm marked. So please, share this, archive it, screenshot it, get the word out, because if that countdown reaches 0 and I disappear, you'll know why, and maybe someone else won't fall into the circle.